Hello and welcome to another edition of AIW's The Card is Going to Change. As always, brought to you by Smart Mark Video, who takes care of all of our DVDs and streaming of every AIW show. Also want to give a shout out to the folks feeding us this and every episode of The Card is Going to Change. Angelo's Pizza in Lakewood on Madison Avenue. Make sure you grab some wonderful pizza there or any sort of Italian food that they have. And of course, as always, brought to you by Jack Prints for all your signage, your graphic design, any sort of memorabilia that you would want to get made. Check out Jack Prints on their website at jackprints.com.
JAKPrints.com.
That's right, and that voice that you heard right there was Chandler Biggins, one of our hosts here of the show, along with the other co-owner of AIW, John Thorne. And today's episode, we are doing a AMA, or I guess AUA, Ask Us Anything episode, in which questions were sent from you, the AIW fans, and John and Chandler have not seen these questions.
Except for the ones that people tweeted against our rules, but
not everybody follows directions very well. So with that being said, we'll get this thing started. You guys ready?
Yeah, we're live again from the studio apartment in Parma, Ohio.
It's my studio apartment. It's not even your studio apartment.
Our studio apartment.
It belongs to all of us.
Yeah.
I would love to see your studio apartment.
It's full of eBay items.
All right. First question. We're going to start easy here. This one you saw on Twitter. Favorite sandwich from Melt?
I would say a lot of the monthly ones have been my favorite. There was they used to use specifically weekend exclusive ones. So a lot of those, if I had to pick off the regular menu, I'd probably say the Parmageddon with the pierogies and cheese. Hold the sauerkraut.
Oh.
I don't know if this is really that interesting to people, but I'm gonna go with. I have it narrowed down to 3. 2 were only available for 3 days total. 1 was the Charge It to the Underhill sandwich.
Oh, the country fried steak. That was one of mine. Yeah.
That was good. That was only available for 3 days. The other, the Breakfast Club Melt, which was also only available for 3 days. The bread was waffles, and it came with pixie sticks to put on the sandwich. And then my regular menu item is the Parma Italy, which is basically just a chicken Parmesan sandwich.
Yeah, some of the weekly or monthly or whatever ones. There's a sweet and sour chicken one with Chinese food on it. That was good. On a grilled cheese sandwich.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, and they did like a Korean barbecue one with like short ribs and like kimchi and stuff. That was real good.
So if anybody from Melt is listening, Jingle Toes on Twitter. I know you got those connections.
Yeah, send this over to Matt Fish.
Let's get that Charge It to the Underhills and the Breakfast Club Melts back on the menu.
All right, next question. Another fun non-wrestling one. Favorite straight-to-DVD Steven Seagal film? Also, so that is for Biggins. Thorne, they want your most underrated horror film. Okay, so Biggins, you go first.
Steven Seagal. I don't think I've ever watched a full direct-to-video movie of Steven Seagal. That was more in the era where I stopped watching him. I will tell you my favorite Steven Seagal movies. I know that's not the question, but I'll supply a wrong answer anyways. Definitely Under Siege 1 and 2. Hard to Kill is by far my favorite.
It's great, yeah.
What's that? Kelly LeBrock, one of the hottest women of the 80s.
Yeah, he's married to her at one point.
Weird Science.
Weird Science,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
right, buddy.
I'm trying to think of what other Steven Seagal. I know those are my top 3. Some of his other ones were good. The one where he was in Alaska with the woman from CSI, that was good.
Oh yeah.
This is going to be the worst podcast of all time.
I can't remember all of them. But I would definitely say Hard to Kill and Under Siege 1 and 2. Those are my top 3.
All right. John Thorne, most underrated horror film.
Ooh, man. I think I'm going to go with Night of the Creeps.
That's the second reference on The Card is Going to Change.
It's a great movie. Newer underrated horror movies that I've seen lately, I'm going to go with Hush. That's on Netflix. That was really good. And The Hills Run Red. That's not on Netflix, but it's also a pretty good movie.
Wow. All right. Well, let's get into some wrestling topic stuff then.
Thank God, man. If you
those were the warm-ups.
Sandwiches and Steven
Those were the
Seagal.
warm-ups. Those were the warm-ups.
Steven Segal podcast.
Here we go.
Biggins could go on that all day.
All right. Into wrestling questions. Enough about sandwiches and Steven Seagal.
The fucking Biggins can go on Steven Seagal for
Yeah.
the next.
And sandwiches.
What about a
All
Steven
sandwiches.
Seagal sandwich?
His two fuck. Oh, if you throw fucking the guy from Taken in there, fucking Biggins will go for the next 3 hours. What's that fucking guy's name?
Liam Neeson.
Oh
Neeson.
god,
And
that's
Jason Statham and Vin Diesel.
A very particular set of
Biggins
skills.
basically just loves action stars.
I would kill somebody right now to see a screener copy of Faith of the Furious or whatever.
I have no idea what that is. All right.
Faith of the Furious.
Yeah.
New Fast and Furious movie.
Oh, Fate, not Faith of the Furious.
Whatever.
It's not
Dude,
about.
what kind of fucking fan are you, man?
It's not,
I just watched the trailer.
not
eight
about.
times.
It's not about their religious beliefs.
Jesus. All right.
All right.
Can we get to some wrestling?
Yeah. Here we go.
questions?
What were some matches booked that got canceled you wanted the most?
Oh, we got a big one.
I will say, so off the top of my head, this has happened. I mean, there's probably been a million matches that were booked that I've totally forgot about or fell apart for whatever reason. We probably should have previewed these questions beforehand so I could have had multiple answers for this. But I'm going to go with, for Absolution 10, before we came up with that crazy main event with the Young Bucks and
Samoa Joe.
and Ray Rowe and that crazy 5-on-5. The original plan was to book the Great Khali for Absolution 10
The Great Khali and Josh Singh as a unit.
with Sonjay Dutt.
All as a team.
Yeah, that was the original plan. Unfortunately, we got stuck booking that 10-man tag.
Yeah, that worked out terribly, huh?
We were in hefty negotiations with the Great Khali. I would say we were negotiating with him for 4 to 5 months.
Yeah, I was going to say 4 months.
And yeah, I mean, it was close to happening, man. I was like, fuck, man, this is going to be huge. The Great Khali doing an indie show? This is fucking hilarious. But at the last minute, it fell apart. He was like living in like Texas or something at the time.
Okay.
Didn't he own a convenience store and was living in Texas running it or something?
Oh, I can't remember that much. But I know that there was a lot of negotiations, and like Sonjay Dutt was kind of acting as the middle person, because I guess the Great Khali is not very well at English. So Sonjay was kind of negotiating this deal, and like we were working it out, and man, it was a hefty price tag for the Great Khali, man. I'll tell
I
you
think
that.
we were paid by inch of height.
Yeah, like so it fell apart at the last second. Probably, I would say probably 2 months out from 2 or 3 months out from Absolution. So we decided to lock everybody down for the 10-man tag instead. I don't know. Everyone else could be the judge on whether that was better or worse for the for Absolution 10. 'Cause
we'll never know.
I personally would have loved to seen the Great Khali throw a fucking super kick and do some indie fucking wrestling shit.
The human centipede action during that 5-on-5 match was pretty great, though.
The Great
around
Khali
the
could have
ring.
just laid down. It would have equaled all of it.
That's Thorne. I would say mine would probably be the Panda Express never happening of Johnny and Kevin Steen as a tag team. Maybe that'll happen one day somewhere else, but
Some great promos out of that.
Oh man, we filmed 2 or 3 like hype promos for it. They made merchandise for it, and then the day I believe that was right when Kevin was gonna have his second child, and just had his second child, and he was forced to kind of pull out at the last second.
Next question. Who was the best ex-WWE / WCW / ECW wrestler you booked to deal with? Worst, and why? So that's like a two-part.
so best and
Best
worst.
and worst.
Well, go ahead, Tom.
I'm gonna go with the best, being Little Guido. He's probably the best human
Still booked to
on
this
the
day.
fucking planet. He's probably one of the favorite people I've ever encountered in all professional wrestling. Second best will be a surprising Scott Hall. It was an awesome experience booking Scott Hall.
Okay.
I know there's been a lot of people that have had some real fucked up dealings with Scott Hall, but when we brought him in, he was fucking awesome. And I'll probably never have a reason to talk about this ever again, but he came in a day early, and for some reason, ICP was in town, and he was like, fuck, bro, let's go see those fucking clowns. This fucking guy just walks right backstage. We just walk right into the venue. He just walks right into Violent J's private fucking dressing room, And I just watched Violent J put his face paint on while Scott Hall made fun of him for like fucking 25 straight minutes. And then Scott Hall was like, "All right, bro, fuck, let's get out of here and go get some sushi." And that's pretty much my Scott Hall experience.
I didn't have any of that, so
No?
I'll say Guido, of course, Smothers. I've talked a million times about how much I love the FBI. I'll say Missy Hyatt was awesome. We only had her like a couple times, but she was great to deal with. And then I think my favorite of all time was Robert Fuller, Colonel Parker. That was a dream come true.
Surprise, surprise that was your list, Chandler Biggins.
Yeah, exactly.
Missy Hyatt was awesome to deal with, though, and so was Colonel Robert Parker.
Missy Hyatt, though, I know she's a listener, but she sent us a very nice email about her experiences in AIW, and I teared up a little bit.
You're such a
I mean, it was
softy there.
honestly, it was really touching, though, for somebody who's basically been in wrestling for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
To take the time to write an email and say what an enjoyable experience it was, especially in her last few months, the last few months of her career, because she did retire. So I would say Missy Hyatt is definitely right up on the list, because that's just like the bizarre thing about being a wrestling promoter is you get to encounter some of these people, and some of them are not good to deal with, but then you encounter people like Little Guido or Missy Hyatt, and you develop like friendships with them, which is pretty crazy because these are people that we watched growing up.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's still probably the big compliment for you guys with Missy Hyatt is she still sits there and interacts with you guys constantly on Twitter.
Oh yeah, and for sure. And it's funny because a lot of people will hate on us and be like, "Oh, people only put you guys over because you book them." But Missy Hyatt will not take our dates and still loves us. So kudos to her.
Yeah, she's been gone for months now. She's been
Won't
since
come
retired.
back, she says.
Yeah, she's done. She's retired.
We've tried.
Wow.
Yeah, because she was just great to have around. And she honestly had a lot of good ideas that she would suggest to us. And she put a lot of thought into everything she did in AIW. And, there's a lot of people that could give a fuck. They're just there to get their envelope and leave. So, that was definitely a positive experience.
Another one we forgot about was Booker T. Booker T, there's been mixed reviews from other promotions, but he was awesome to deal with, and him and Grado might be one of my favorite moments of 2016.
Yeah, Booker T was excellent. We were a little nervous because, like I said, you read these reports of these guys and these promoters having bad experiences with them, like Scott Hall or Booker T. So, we're definitely nervous when we do it, but I guess if you just kind of treat them with respect, and they give you kind of the same respect back. And another one, Terry Funk. Can't say enough great stuff about Terry Funk. That was definitely a dream come true. I would say, the worst ex guys to deal with, definitely Vader. Vader was absolutely horrendous.
And, I mean, we have a whole episode about Vader, but fuck Vader. He was awful.
Vader was bad. Matt Morgan wasn't that great.
Oh, I mean, I don't want to waste Matt Morgan's stories right now, but we could probably in the future do we had a WrestleMania 23 was in Detroit, Michigan, and we ran that weekend, and we ran with Jake the Snake Roberts and Matt Morgan, and that could be a whole podcast on its own. Mark that down.
I mean, we'll probably never cover that ever again, so you might as well just get into it. Jake the Snake, fucking awful to deal with. I don't care.
We're never going to talk about this again? Okay, Conrad.
Yeah, we're never going to talk about this again. I don't care. Like, Jake the Snake, this big fucking resurrection or whatever, good for him, but fuck that guy, because he ripped us off for a ton of fucking money.
He ordered crack cocaine in my car.
Just awful to deal with when we booked him. Obviously, we booked him when he was, before he...
It was a mess.
Yeah, before DDP got a hold of him or whatever, but... He was fucking awful to deal with, cost us a ton of money. He's the reason why we refused to do deposits because, that was early AIW Absolution 2. We sent him a deposit.
Could have killed us.
Yeah, he did not come. We ate the plane ticket.
Yeah, because it's funny that the first two Absolutions were so cursed because the first one Kamala no-showed, the second one Jake the Snake no-showed. And I remember both times sitting with Thorne and going, oh my God, we're dead.
And now here you are, years later.
So I would say Jake the Snake was bad. Matt Morgan was just kind of like a dick. I know that he was fine with me, but I know that him and Pedro had some fucking like some bad almost fight each other interactions.
If
He
you
had a lot of almost fights.
if you
Yeah.
upset Pedro, there's a problem probably with you.
Yeah. So I would say Jake the Snake was bad. Vader was bad. Matt Morgan was pretty bad.
I'll talk about somebody that I was mad at that we didn't book was Psycho Sid Vicious. We tried to book in the Gauntlet this year, and he kept answering the calls, telling me to call back in 5 minutes. He would never answer again, and this went on about 10 times.
Sid is my dream come true. He's like,
It didn't come true, though.
I know. That's what I'm saying. He would be my dream come true. He's Psycho Sid. He's probably my favorite wrestler ever.
We don't have a Psycho Sid, but we have Smokey Smasher Psycho Smothers.
Well, that's good because that's a great segue into our next question, as it turns out, John. This was submitted by wrestling fan Joe. I feel like everybody's name is Joe that sent me emails, but he wants to know, money not being a factor, if you could book any one person from wrestling, past or present, whatever the case may be, any federation, who would you book?
Well, I mean, Thor could go first. But
Chris Chetty.
I'm thinking purely from a financial standpoint. I'm not sure if Chris Chetty is going to draw as much as 1984 Hulk Hogan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean Hulk Hogan would be sweet.
1987 Ric Flair.
Not as sweet as that double jump moonsault Chris Chetty had.
1980s Missy Hyatt and Hollywood John Tatum.
You tried to book John Tatum for Missy Hyatt's wedding.
I didn't try. I was going to ask her, though.
You found him.
Well, I found him years before that. He king of Google.
She loves John. She talked about him on a different podcast.
Well, and another guy she knew very well, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert in his prime.
yeah.
I think I'm sticking with Chris Chetty.
I'm sticking with 1984 Hulk Hogan.
No, actually, you know what? I'm going to go with 1999 The Rock.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
I think we might draw a pretty good house with that.
With 1984 Hulk Hogan and The Rock,
Yeah.
Oh, that's
we could almost sell the Sky Dome.
I almost did not graduate from high school to go see that match.
the Sky Dome.
Yeah, Hogan versus The
WrestleMania.
Rock, Icon versus Icon.
That's a
I was
great
a senior
match.
in high school.
Hell of a
And little
match.
did you know, if we had everything we could do, it could happen at Mount Carmel.
Yeah. I took a week off of high school and I told some girls that I was in some legal trouble and I needed some money. And I got all these girls to give me like $50 here, $50 there. And then I got that first credit card you get in the mail when you turn 18.
Oh, yeah.
So I took all this fake jail money and I cash advanced that $200 credit limit on that Capital One. And I had it right to Toronto to see the Icon versus the Icon. I missed school for like a week and a half because, I mean,
Did you take a taxi cab from Niagara Falls to Toronto?
I did. That was expensive.
You
I mean,
knocked
I don't know.
out a car?
I thought Canada was like the size of a state.
Oh, man.
I still think it is.
That's like a 2.5 hour cab ride.
How much would that Uber be?
Oh, I don't know, but the cab ride was about $300.
How would you think that Canada's the size of the state when it goes across the entire northern border, which is
really
multiple
knows.
states?
You don't think about that kind of stuff. You think Canada, Indiana, same fucking size.
Yeah, all right.
I don't know the difference between Hamilton or Oshawa.
Hamilton is a Broadway play.
Oh, not in Canada.
A home of Ethan Page, Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Steel City, Canada.
Yeah.
Took me about a week and a half to get to Canada and back. But I've
did you walk?
That's a lot of taxi cabs.
Yeah. Holy.
I saw that fucking match though. I still got the T-shirt somewhere in my closet.
Smuggle shit over the border like Tammy Sitch would have off of that bridge.
All right. Sticking to the theme of booking and wrestlers. What current independent wrestler or wrestlers that wrestled in AIW in the past would you like to bring back?
Jimmy Jam Olsen, #1.
I would say ACH probably. He's always good. Still on the indies though. That's hard. Most of the people I would want to bring back are in New York right now.
Yeah, I mean Jimmy Olsen hasn't wrestled in years, but he's
Jimmy Olsen's good.
sometimes I just wake up in the morning and I go, man, fucking Jimmy Olsen. If he would have just stuck it out for a couple more years, he'd be fucking real good right now.
Technically, I don't know if because we'll talk about this some other time. But Haley Hatred, I'd love to have her back. All the people that went to New York, I would want back.
New York, huh?
New York.
What is this, an RF video shoot interview?
What do you think about New York?
And somebody did ask about Haley hatred, and but for them, I would say, listen back to previous episodes because that was covered.
We're trying to get her on here.
Well, yeah. Biggins did find her. I don't know if we had a chance to update people on that.
No, I did find her. I won't reveal anything, but I am trying to get her on here.
And she's doing well, though.
She's doing well. She's alive.
Yeah, she's alive. She's been found. There has been communication.
All right, sticking to the theme of dream booking, because there's so many questions everybody wants to know. This one, 2 parts, so we'll start with the first. In the years you've been promoting, who's the one wrestler who eluded you and or got away?
Eluded us. Got away.
Eluded, yeah. So you're going to book them and didn't get to. Maybe it's Psycho Sid, as we've already mentioned.
I would say probably like one thing that we probably should have done, but we didn't, is Sasha Banks used to contact us all the time. And we just, we were in no position to, she was based in New England or whatever.
Yeah, that's a big one. We knew about Bailey before she was in WWE, but we weren't going to book a flight from California.
Especially like at those times when they were on the independents, we could barely pay somebody $40.
Sure.
I would say Sasha Banks is probably a regret not being able to book her and have that footage.
And then like our third show or whatever, weren't you trying to get Punk?
Yeah, like right before Punk signed, we were trying to get him for Hell on Earth 1.
I thought it was Rude Boy Strikes.
No, it was Hell on Earth 1. And then there was a point in time where during the Punk stuff, we almost also booked Super Dragon, and then that fell apart too. So then we ended up, I think, booking nobody for that show.
You booked me.
You, yeah. CM Punk, Super Dragon, Chandler Biggins.
Yeah, you guys are really fucked up. I would say another big one was Mike Quackenbush. We had him booked like 2 or 3 times. One time we had a show in Pittsburgh that got canceled that wasn't anything to do with us, and he was booked on that, and it got canceled. And then he got injured the one time, and then he had like a thing come up. He had to go out of town for another one, but he was a guy I always wanted, Quackenbush.
Yeah, he eluded us for years. I'm trying to think of who else.
Safe to say the Great Khali, of course, also now on that list, right?
Great Khali.
He's going to be mentioned multiple times.
We had the opportunity to book John Moxley, Dean Ambrose, like a lot more, but it's just something that we ended up booking him 2 times. I think something that we probably should have taken better advantage of.
That was dark days.
Yeah,
you guys could have had 2/3 of the Shield teaming up at AIW before they were even the Shield. Realistically, no, between he and Tyler Black.
I don't think they cross paths that much in it. Like, the timelines don't really add up because Tyler Black left for a while when he went to ROH.
Ah, okay. That would have been fun. All right, second part to this. Who is AIW's white whale that you will feel incomplete if never booked?
Reckless Youth. I try to book Reckless Youth every single year. I know it's probably never going to happen, but every single year that we've done the J-Lit, I've reached out to Reckless Youth because he is like one of the guys that got me into independent wrestling. I don't know, like he was the guy, the independent wrestler for so many years in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I remember seeing him on like an indie show in Medina, Ohio when I was like 14 years old in front of 13 people. And I followed his career ever since that day. And we've corresponded quite a bit over the years. And I always try to get him out of retirement. And, he just is happily retired. I don't even know. It's probably been 10 years since he's wrestled. But every single year for the J-Lit, I give it a shot. I send him a message. He always sends me very, very, very nice responses and is thankful that somebody even remembers and appreciates what he did in wrestling. But
always very complimentary of JT Lightning as well.
Yeah, very complimentary of JT Lightning and the whole meaning behind the tournament. Because JT I think only booked him once or twice in early Cleveland All Pro days. But I don't think it'll ever happen, but that's kind of like the guy that I'm always going to chase after to get one match out of his Reckless Youth. And even if it doesn't happen, I'm never going to stop trying.
I would say, like, of people that were available, it would be hard to come up with one person because, I mean, we've pretty much accomplished most of my bucket list. But definitely, like I said before, if there was going to be returns, it would be people, but they're all signed away right now.
Okay.
And I would love for Kevin Steen and the Young Bucks to come back because they always pop the town.
That wasn't the question, though. It was like, who has eluded you?
I don't know. Nobody's really.
Who's the white whale? Yeah.
Keep going back for these returns, man.
Hollywood John Tatum.
Okay, that's your guy.
That's my guy.
Fucking runs a flea market.
It's a very successful flea market, Tallahassee.
Okay. Our next grouping of questions. First, this comes from Alex. I think this is a very easy answer. There was a certain, I'm not going to drop names, certain WWE superstar was at the event of Hell on Earth. Why did he hightail it out of that first match? It's a pretty easy answer.
Him and his brother had Cavs tickets, and he got booked last minute by Thorne.
There you go.
Pretty much, it was a thing where we were out for Thanksgiving Eve. I didn't know. Usually, Hot Young Bradley does not come home for Thanksgiving. He was there. Mike Tolar was there, who was a longtime favorite of kind of the darker days of AIW. He was like one of the bright spots, I guess you would say.
For sure, he was like the it guy for a while.
Yeah, for us. I don't
yes.
know if he was the it guy for, I would say the mainstream independent wrestling fans.
Oh
or
no,
whatever.
not at all. But
He was a dependable
in
guy,
the AIW bubble. He was directly shot to the top.
Yeah, because I mean, he was just he looked like a wrestler at a time when half the guys fucking looked like.
We had him and Sterling James Keenan, and then the rest of the roster.
And Tyler Black, and then it was just a bunch of other guys. So, yeah, it was the wrestler you're referring to is Dolph Ziggler, obviously, but they had Cavs tickets, and Ziggler's like, if you book Tolar versus my brother, I'm going to skip most of the Cavs game and I'm going to come to your show. And I said, I'll put him on first so you could do both. So they went on first, and as soon as they were done,
he rolled out.
He got out of there, and he went to the Cavs game. But there's been shows in the past where he just comes and sits in the crowd.
There was like a J-Lit. He was there the whole weekend. It was real weird.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of the guys, like the Cleveland guys that are more successful, or in WWE or whatever, if they can, a lot of them will stop by and hang out. And like when EC3 was signed to WWE, he would come all the time when he was Derek Bateman. Or,
Hot Young Briley was in WWE. He would come.
He would come. Ziggler comes quite often whenever he's around. So it was funny because he used to wear like a lucha mask. So if you just randomly watch some old AIW shows and there's like a guy in a lucha randomly sitting in a lucha mask in the crowd, that's Dolph Ziggler, because he would just come in disguise sometimes. But yeah, he had Cavs tickets, so that's why he hightailed it out of there.
All right. There is a grouping of 3 names that came up multiple times in these emails. People wanting to know where they are. Will they return to AIW?
Oh, where are they now? This is up my alley.
It's not necessarily
Let me
where are they
Google
now,
them.
but
Let me Google them.
Is there a reason they're not here? Will they come back? These names are
Mr. RBI.
Not Mr. RBI.
Just go one at a time.
Mr. RBI turns out to not show up in the emails at all, unfortunately. Okay, first name.
He showed up in Twitter recently about how he's got one more run left in him.
One more run. 2017.
First name is Davey Vega.
Davey Vega. We were booking all the Submission Squad and all the St. Louis guys, and then it just was one of those things where Jim Cornette always says a line, nobody can miss you unless you're gone. And there was a time where I think a lot of the crowd was turning on him as a babyface, and he might have been champion too long. I'm not saying he'll never be back. There might be a big day where he returns, but they're definitely the St. Louis guys are very tied up now in this NWS thing, so I'm not sure when. NWL, my bad. Sorry.
What's that guy? Was it Dapper? Dude, did you just name drop Dapper's Fed? NWS?
Oh, yeah. I wonder whatever happened to that Fed. Who he got bought by?
I would say with Davey Vega, he was definitely, a cornerstone for a long time of AIW. And I just think, kind of in a similar tone of what Biggins said is, sometimes guys are great, they do nothing wrong, but you have to kind of cycle them in and out so people want them back again. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Davey Vega was on every show for like 3 straight years or something like that.
And like them and him, the Submission Squad, we like them. They did nothing wrong. But it was just one of those things where, and I would say the Batiri also fall into this thing where they did great for us, but it's just one of those things where it's, we have to limit how many people are on the shows.
Well, it's not that you have to keep things fresh. So not only do people you want them to miss those talents, but you got to keep the overall presentation and the talent fresh and in the minds of the fans, because people like seeing new and different things. I think Biggins is not processing that Davey Vega was around a lot longer past even the Submission Squad guys. I would say he was there for an additional
2 years, yeah.
Additional year and a half after we stopped booking them.
His last show actually was the December show that I ring announced for. The first one I did last year. It was a year ago.
Made him leave.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was either you or him.
That was it.
No, I would just say, Davey Vega's great. He was always trying to evolve and asking, for feedback and things he can do better and things that he can change up. But I just think it's, sometimes you gotta cycle some people out, and then when they come back, people are super pumped for it. So I'm not saying Davey Vega will or won't be back, but there's definitely not like a heat situation there. It's just a matter of keeping the roster kind of fresh. And he was here for a long time, and then you cycle somebody else in, and that person will get cycled out. It's just there's guys that are, if you notice, like there's very few long tenured AIW talents on the roster. A lot of people, other than I would say maybe you could find 5, get cycled in and out over the years or miss shows here and there, because you got to just try to keep the show fresh.
Sure. So the next name is one most remembered as his last appearing was being AIW Absolute Champion. People have seen him at AIW shows, but he has not been on them, and that is Ricky Shane Page.
Well, I mean, this is a long story, and I like Ricky as a person, but professionally, he quit while champion, and that was pretty, in my mind, unexcusable.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just get into that. Basically, Ricky was a long time, roster member. We finally built to Absolution 10 where he's going to be the champion. He was on the first show. He's finally 10 years later going to become champion of the promotion. We build to all that. I would say, I think maybe his second title defense, he goes, right before he goes out of the curtain, he's wetting his hair down, and he goes, "Hey, man, I just got to let you know, I got to lose this next month. I'm taking time off." And I go, "What?" He goes, "I'm taking time off." I said, "You literally just became the champion."
And after a 10-year buildup, basically.
I mean, it wasn't like a 10-year buildup, but that's the story is, he's finally, reached the top of the mountain, and, we're going to be going with him. So that's kind of where we develop, people that follow AIW remember Ethan Page started throwing fireballs, because that was our way to write him off, because he said, hey, he's taking time off of all of wrestling across the board. So we're going to write him off, and then we were going to bring him back probably at the Gauntlet for the Gold. We were hoping he'd be ready to return, and he was going to come back as Christian Faith. So, we figure all this out, even though it's an annoying situation, because, this is our guy that we're trying to go with. And then, before he can really pick up steam off of, being the focal guy in our company, he says, "Hey, I'm taking time off." So then we do this fireball thing. We write him off. And then a week later he goes, "Oh, hey, man, if you need me to wrestle in December, I can wrestle, because DJ Hyde texted me. He's going to book me for CCW now." I said, "Well, what happened to taking time off?" He goes, "Well, I can't take time off now. I got booked for CZW.
It's Cage of Death, man.
So I took great offense to that he was willing to. He had no problem giving up the championship and giving up the spot as our top guy, but he couldn't say no to being on a CZW show, which they hadn't been booking him at all, really, since I think before that the last time they booked him was 6 months previously or something.
Yeah, just TOD.
So I took great offense to that. We wanted to put a lot of faith behind him. We did put a lot of faith behind him, and he gave it up.
Pardon the pun.
And so no, I don't think I would say it's highly unlikely that he'll be back, just because that left a really bad taste in my mouth. That we say, hey, you're going to be the guy. We appease him for his time off that he requests. We come up with an angle. We make Ethan Page start fucking throwing fucking stupid fireballs, and then because the angle is his face was going to be burned. He's going to have to cover his face up again, and it was going to he was going to come back with a vengeance, and we were going to build to him and Ethan Page at Absolution 11, and then he comes with a, hey man, I'm taking time off from everything but CZW, and it's just like, okay. Well, what the fuck? So, yeah, I guess that's kind of a long story, but...
And this is not going to be anything new to RSP when he hears the podcast. I mean, for anybody listening thinking, oh, they're, throwing shade. This is all stuff that he knows.
It's a business situation, and, some people will say, oh, well, who cares? But it's my business, and I took offense to it, so sure. I'm not gonna book somebody that didn't have the he didn't show us respect, so we have no reason to really book him again.
Well, and like Biggins said, as a person, he still enjoys him, and obviously,
obviously he's around and he's at the shows.
Right,
I see him once a month in Canada. It's fine, like nothing wrong. It is what it is.
It's just one of those situations that that's the road he decided to go down. So that's fine. Sure. that was his. I'm sure he does not care at all.
No, I think he's just doing just fine.
Everybody's doing great. So the last name that kept popping up was actually
Big Mo.
Not Big Mo,
I'm sorry.
but an AIW student, Joshua Singh.
If you had the answer, I would love to know it.
Yeah, he's just a guy that he just stopped kind of coming to training. And, he just stopped coming around.
And, when he quit coming to training, then he quit coming to the shows. And, we see him at Mega, and we've seen him other places, but, we just don't know.
And we just go, hey, man, are you going to start training again? And he just goes, yeah, man, I probably should. And then that's it.
And now he's, a YouTube movie reviewer and buys Blu-rays. It's real weird.
Yeah,
That's another thing. It's just his decision to not come around anymore. So, it's up to him, basically.
And it's kind of with how many people are active at our school now, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind sort of thing. And it's just we see these guys twice a week. We don't see Joshua Singh, so it's kind of oh, there's a spot. Dominic Garini's going to get that spot. Oh, there's another spot. Oh, let's give this to Dr. Dan. There's another spot, Brian Carson. These are guys that are at, they go to every single training session. They kind of show passion, I guess, to advance their careers. They continue to train. So, those are going to be the guys that get the opportunities. Joshua Singh just stopped coming around. So
Dominic Garini and Alex Daniels a couple weeks ago just went to Florida in one day. That's pretty crazy.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. You guys submitted so many questions that this has become a two-part deal, and they ask us anything. So that's going to do it for part one. Catch episode 2 of the Ask Us Anything next week right here on The Card Is Going to Change, presented by AIW, and of course sponsored by Smart Mark Video, Jack Prince, and Angelo's Pizza. Thanks everybody for John Thorne and Chandler Biggins. This has been Steve Guy, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks.
You said you weren't going to do that in 2017.
I lied.